I get about halfway up and the hook falls off of my leg.
Oh, jeez.
Like I'm young. Like my legs are starting to shake. I have one hook on my boot, and I'm like sitting here bawling. I'm like, I'm dead. my story ends here.
My story.
So
we open the telephonic channel of speech between New York and London.
This is Fred Capel calling from the Earth
Hello,
Station
Joel.
at Andover.
Yeah, Marty Cooper here.
We are calling it iPhone.
Hey, what's up, everyone? And welcome to another episode of Talking Telephony. So I've got Scott here from Tie Point Fiber. Now, Scott, actually, he's the owner of the company. And I got to tell you, his story is kind of awesome. He's pretty much been doing this like 5 minutes as a business owner and is doing absolutely amazing in our industry. So I really wanted to talk to him. I wanted to get his insight, and I'd love to find out what makes him such a success and kind of what he sees for our industry going forward. All right, so let's get into it. You know, we met at Fiber Connect. It was awesome to get to meet you. You're a really cool dude. Your story is pretty awesome. Why don't you take us back to the beginning, kind of where you started out in the industry, and then also kind of how that led you to be a business owner?
yeah, so it was about 2004 when I started in the industry. So I've been in the industry for 20 years now. I started in customer service at a company called Alltel at the time, which later became Windstream. Windstream has a colorful past. So I worked at Windstream for in customer service for 2 years. Decided office work wasn't anything for me. From customer service, I joined a department called Assignment, where we would tell technicians what copper pairs to use. From there, I really got excited about all the field work and all the stuff I didn't know. So I applied for a bunch of positions, got a bunch of certifications during that time, and eventually got a technician job after a year of applying. I was a technician for about 3 or 4 years, and I left there and I went and climbed cell phone towers. From cell phone towers, I went to at&t U-verse right as they were starting out. Did that for about a month and hated it. Then I left at&t and worked for a company that did work for EPB. EPB was just getting off the ground at that time. So that's when I really got my hands wet with fiber during the start of that build out. I wasn't on the construction side, though. I was on the service delivery side. You know, like splicing in drops and naps and at on the side of the house. I did that for a few years, and then I left there, did structured cabling. From structured cabling, I went back to Windstream, worked there for a few years. Left Windstream, went to Spectrum as a fiber tech. Worked in the Wilmington market. Worked there for a year. Then was an operations manager for a splicing company.
Real quick, I have a question about that, because you said you work for Spectrum and splicing fiber, correct?
Correct.
Now, what time frame was this? Because one thing that I'm very interested in is kind of the crossover between Telecom and Cat-V. So with Spectrum getting into the fiber network and all that, kind of what was that time frame that you were doing that, and how new was that for them?
Well, when I started with Spectrum, it was more like BAU stuff, commercial circuits, muxes. They did have some fiber to the home, neighborhoods, completely different design how it's designed now, though. Yeah. But that was back into 2018. 2018 is when I started with Spectrum.
Now, was Wilmington like the first area they were doing that in, or had they already kind of taken it national by then?
I think Wilmington was one of their first areas.
I think it was too.
Particularly the Regalwood area. I'm sure across their huge footprint, they had other fiber to the home networks, but I think in the Southeast market, Wilmington was one of the first markets that started utilizing fiber to the home.
Wait, so when you went to do that then, because I'm almost positive you're right. I'm pretty sure Wilmington was there first, and I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I could swear that was their first. How much of a change was that for you, or how hard was that for you? Although you had already kind of come from that, so was it just easier for you than kind of their people that had been around forever?
So I knew fiber. I knew outside plant. Coming from telephone to cable TV, whole different world. Like I thought I was learning a whole new language. So the language barrier, you know, they have nodes, they have amps. Telephone world, you have remotes, central offices, cross boxes, and stuff like that. So
RSUs, things like that.
Yeah, just totally different, you know.
Yeah.
And the design philosophy is totally different from telephone to cable TV, which I'm glad I have experience in both now. But crossing over from telephone to cable, I would say I really didn't understand what people were talking about until like the 4 or 5 month mark into it. And then it started like clicking and making sense for me.
It was a fake it till you make it kind of thing, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I could do the job. I'm just like, can you explain what, you know, just the little all the cable TV terms is they use. Like instead of like peak lamps, they say hangers. Like just little stuff like that.
Yeah. So you were basically Tom Cruise in Days of Thunder when his crew chief comes to him and he's talking. He's like, Harry, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he's like, well, you know, he's like, no, I legitimately have no idea what I don't know the words you're using.
Yeah, like it was totally new. Like, and, you know, I had a like wide variety of like vocabulary because I did inside plant. I mean, like I was Big C certified, worked all over the Southeast on military bases, you know, knew all the telephones, but cable TV was completely new to me. And just, you know, I had to look up what HFC was. Like that's how raw I was when talking about coax, you know, so.
Well, you know, so you were Big C certified?
Yes.
That's awesome. Actually, so
I'm pretty sure it's expired now.
Oh yeah,
I was at one time.
I feel you. I was too, and yes, I'm sure mine was as well. To be honest with you, mine was so long ago. I don't remember because you remember they had the generation of the books, like what book number you were on.
Yeah.
I cannot actually remember what books I took my test on. I do remember though that I felt very happy about myself. I was the only person, and at the time it was SBC. It was before SBC bought AT&T. And I remember I was the only person in the SBC office that I actually passed the Bixie certification on my first try. And nice. I thought that was like some huge deal or something. I felt pretty good about it's my very small claim to fame, especially then. It's like, oh, I passed my test first try.
Nice.
So did you put yourself through Bixie or did your company?
The company I was working for, I don't believe they're a company any longer, but they sent me to Bixie to get Bixie certified. They had a lot of military contracts, and the military contracts wanted their people to be Bixie certified, or at least their lead people to be Bixie certified.
Did you ever go out and say certify an area for like a skyscraper? Like say there's some new skyscraper coming in. Did you go behind, look at the electricians' work, look at all the work that got in there, NEMA boxes, bus bars, make sure everything's... Did you ever have to do that kind of stuff?
I never did any audit work, but I would go into like comm rooms and be like, okay, this isn't up to standard. This isn't up to standard. Be like, we need this, this, and this, and this. And I was basically a liaison for that company to move all these projects along.
Well, let me tell you, man, you saved yourself a lot of stress and a lot of heartache because I cannot tell you the amount of, and I, by the way, I do not trust electricians from now till the end of time because of this. And for any electricians watching this, I'm sorry, but as a double E and as a Bixie inspector, like, I'm going to wire my own house. This is not a joke. I once went out to, it was a high-rise building going in Miami, and I had to, go inspect it and make sure our equipment could go in. They had epoxied a bus bar to a NEMA box and then said that was grounded. That was wrong for so many reasons I can't even start to explain why it was wrong. And these people, like these electricians, they were like, "No, it's totally fine. It's grounded." I'm like, "So when did epoxy become a groundable material?" And that is the smallest little story. So you, sir, saved yourself a ton of headache and a ton of stress not having to deal with electricians.
I'm sure. And then once you audit something, like you feel responsible for it. So,
Yeah,
I mean, it's your baby at that point.
absolutely. So after you got done doing that, after you got done doing the Bixie and doing all that stuff, how'd you kind of go on to be where you're at now?
There was a splicing company out of Wilmington, and I was their first employee. And then we grew that. It was like 5 or 6 employees by the time I left. But they never really listened to me. So I was with them a year and a half. Like, they would hire people. I was their boss. They wouldn't let me, like, have any input who they were giving me. Like I said, a couple of boundaries with them that they didn't care about. I'm a very detailed-oriented person. I was like, they need this information, this information, this information. And I would send it all on a Wednesday. Sunday, when it's time to do invoicing, they would ask me all these questions, and I'd have to be like, refer back to the email I sent Thursday, refer back to the email I sent Wednesday. And I would just forward on the same email, and they'd be like, thanks. I'm very appreciative, very successful people in this industry at this point. But I was like, man, I can create processes that would prevent a lot of this. And I felt like I could do a better job. Had no intention of starting my own business. I actually had a job offer to do inside plant engineering, going into nursing homes and drawing up prints for a wireless network. So one weekend, back to the other company. Again, I was everybody's supervisor. I was the operations manager. They told me to send an email to all the guys to pick out clothes, go to Walmart, buy like khakis and starting a dress code. This was a Saturday. They was like, send a text to all the guys. Monday, there's a dress code. Tell them we'll reimburse everybody on their next bill. And I was like, you got to give these guys more time. You don't know what their financial situation is. You don't know if they even have time this weekend. I feel like you should say, hey, starting next week, start your dress code if that's what you want to do. But give your employees time, give them a paycheck, or, pay them the stipend for the clothes on the next check so they can afford it. I mean, everybody's financial situation is differently. I was like, this is the reason I feel like we need to separate ways. So it's over a dress code, something really simple, but it was the straw that broke the camel's back. I was like, I didn't feel like they cared about their employees. And they were growing so fast at that time, they probably was just trying to keep their head above water. But me, not being a business owner at this point, I didn't understand that. They were just trying to put processes in place, move fast. It just rubbed me the wrong way how they were like demanding everybody on a weekend go get their own clothes. So
Well, I do have to, so I got to say something, because what you just said to me is a perfect example of the startup kind of Silicon Valley way of doing business. Is very much move fast and break things. That's their mindset. That's how Silicon Valley works. That's how they do business. Move fast and break things. Except here's the problem with that. And I think you nailed it perfectly, which is, but in the rest of the world, we're dealing with people. We deal with employees that have lives, employees that matter. So you really have to be thoughtful about whatever process you're going to bring on, even though, and I'm sure you're right. They're trying to grow, they're trying to get their processes in order, all that. But let's be real here. Look what it costs them. It costs them somebody who is an asset. So, and Lord knows what else that costs them. So that really, to me, goes to speak to, because I see a lot of companies now trying to emulate the Silicon Valley way of doing business. Move fast and break things, right? That's how we grow. That's how we do this. Except what's good for the goose may not actually be good for the gander. What's good for Silicon Valley may not be what the rest of the world needs. And I think what you just said perfectly exemplifies that no, especially in an industry like ours, where the work is done by people. This isn't Silicon Valley where we're building robots and microchips, and it's all automated. These are people. People have lives. People have their own issues. People, like you said, people have their own financials. Be mindful of your people. I think that's a very good lesson that everybody could learn from what you just said. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but I did want to touch on that point because you made a really good point.
So at this point, I was irked. I set some boundaries. They didn't respect those boundaries. And then that was the straw that broke the camel's back. So at this point, I had a job offer to be a ISP engineer. This was like all happened at 7:30 in the morning on a Sunday. So I rolled over. I said, wife, I just put my notice in. She was like, what? I was like, it's fine. I got this other job offer. I'll do this for a little bit. We're fine. She was like, okay. So completely supportive. I was like, oh, wow. So then I was laying there for about 15 more minutes, and then I was like, you know what? I'm pretty good at what I do. I was like, I don't think I want to go to that other job. She was like, what? Now she's not awake. Totally panicking. I was like, yeah. I was like, I'm pretty sure I can do a pretty good job running a splicing business. She was like, yeah, but that's going to cost money. I was like, well, we have a little bit of savings and we got good credit. I was like, we should go for it. She was like, at this point, she's out of bed. She's like, okay, you got to get up. We got to go talk about this in the living room. So we put pen and paper. 16 days later, we have a business. We have our EIN. We're completely set up. 26 days later, I'm starting work on our first contract, and it hasn't slowed down since. So it worked out, just pure dumb luck and me being stubborn and living my life by a certain set of standards and ethics and how you should treat people.
Absolutely. Well, what's funny about that is, to me at least, good business is done morally. All business is done always, but good business is done morally. And if you can't work and run a business morally, you shouldn't be running a business. You're going to affect a lot of people's lives, and you're probably going to affect your own life in a very negative way if you don't do things the right way. I find that very interesting and very telling that it wasn't just a situation. It wasn't like you were, sitting there saying, well, I can make millions doing this. And you didn't stew on it for days and weeks. It was literally, these guys kind of pissed you off, like for real. They weren't treating people right. And you're like, the hell with it. I'm going to do it myself.
Yeah.
Really. And I think that says a lot. And the fact that you have been obviously successful at it, I think speaks even more to the fact that, hey, if you treat people right, if you do right, if you run your business right, good things happen, And I think it's wonderful that your wife didn't immediately kick you out of bed and ask if you'd start drinking.
I know she is such a saint. She's, we're really blessed. So I get a contract 3 months into this, us having a business, generating income. She was able to quit her job and then start traveling all over the Southeast, all over the USA, while we grow our business, grow our brand, and get our name out. And just, we lived life to the fullest those first 2 years we were in business. Completely different lifestyle than what we've always done, what our parents told us to do: go to school, get a job, get that security. And we were like, man, this is great. We love it.
Yeah.
And it took me 2 years to understand how everybody didn't want to do this, do what I do, have the responsibility. And I was like, man, I'll never have any employees. I'm just telling people to go out there and start their own business. This is great. I didn't have those really hard times that makes people not want to tell people not to have a business or be safe with it. I'm like, yeah, go start a business.
It's easy. I did it.
Yeah, anybody can do it. I did it. So I think I might be the exception. I didn't know anything about business in 2020 when our company started. And I try to explain people who is scared, who are ambitious, who want to start a business. It's once you quit your job, you have 24 hours a day to learn whatever you need to learn. Whatever problem is, problems you'll be able to understand or figure out.
Absolutely. It's funny you say that too, because I remember when I was younger, my parents both were very much they started their own business. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you can see, that letter right there was from Gulf Telephone in 1971, them thanking my parents for coming out, and because a hurricane had gone through, and my parents started their own company in 2 minutes and went out there and started doing a bunch of repairs and delayed order requests and all that kind of stuff, because they were splicers at the time.
Copper splicers.
Oh yeah. And they hooked poles. There was no bucket trucks. They hooked poles. As a matter of fact, we have a palm tree out in back of my parents' house that looks like it got shot with shotgun shells, because for years that my dad would train people how to hook poles, and they'd use the palm tree in the backyard to do it.
Oh, nice. So,
But the
that's actually a good thing to learn on, because palm trees, they'll give you splitters. So
oh yeah,
do it right.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Ever since I was a little kid, my dad, I remember, and this is like early '80s. My mom and dad would take me out back, and they had an old cross box, just an old cross box. And I mean, I never was a splicer or anything. I went to college, became an engineer. But as a kid, I would go around with my parents, running cases of trouble and doing different things like that. And, my dad made me, I think I was like 13 or 14. My dad made me learn how to hook a pole, and he taught me on the palm tree. So, boy, let me tell you something. There is nothing there. I was in the Army for many years. There is no workout like climbing a freaking pole with your butt bag and everything else on. Like, that will keep you in fighting shape.
Absolutely. So the first time I ever hooked, at Windstream, they sent us to pole climbing school for like a week. All you do is up and down, up and down, up and down. Our instructor, he'd be like, sashay up that pole, sashay. So every time I hooked a pole, I always thought of sashaying up the pole. Very, very good job. But the first time I hooked the pole, and it's surprised I stayed with being a technician. I get about halfway up, and the hook falls off of my leg.
Oh, jeez.
Like, I'm young. Like, my legs are starting to shake. I have one hook on my boot, and I'm like sitting here bawling. I'm like, I'm dead. My story ends here.
My story.
So.
My story ends here. Okay, I'm sorry. That was good. Sorry.
So I'm up this pole, just kicking my leg as hard as I can, trying to get that bar back on my leg. Eventually it does, and I go straight down. I'm like, nope, not doing it. Then about a few months later, I had to hook another pole, and I was like, check my bank account. I was like, yeah, I better go up this pole. Yeah. So went up the pole. I've never been good at gaffing. Like, I've burned so many poles, but they say don't hug the pole as you come down. But
yep.
I've hugged every single one, and I'm like, nope. But I don't slide. I'm like, so
30 minutes later, everyone's down there like, dude, you got to come down. You're like, I'm not letting go of this.
But, I feel like it'd be easier now with the buck squeeze and all the belts and stuff. I always just free-handed. So it was just, shimmy up the pole, do what you do, and then come down. So
I don't know how I can't imagine how they used to do it, because my dad would tell me stories like he went to Wisconsin to work one time in the winter, and 90-foot poles, and they carry everything on their back. They carry their butt bag, their bench, just literally all their tools, everything. So they'd climb up there, set up his little bench, and they'd have this little tent looking thing that they'd kind of put over themselves in the case. And they had a little propane heater that they turned on. He's like, but that damn thing would run out long before you were done. And it's like negative 40 degrees. And as a matter of fact, my dad told me once, he was up there doing that, goes back down. He absolutely hated it, because he's in Wisconsin in the middle of the winter, climbing a freaking pole and sitting up there for 8-10 hours. They go back to the hotel room. They get a call from, where was it? It was somewhere in Louisiana, like Baton Rouge or something. They get a call hey, you guys want to come down here and work? And they're like, yeah, we're on our way. They go to turn all the stuff in to the guy whose area it was. And he's like, well, if you guys leave here, you're never coming back. And they're like, damn right, we're never coming back. That's the plan. We ain't never coming back. I'm like, yeah, I could not.
Why do we want to come back?
Yeah, for real. The invention of the bucket trucks, I feel made telephony and everything else that goes on a pole viable in northern regions, because nobody wants to climb a pole. You start getting Wisconsin, Canada, Alaska. Who in the world in their right mind would want to climb a pole and sit up there for 10 hours,
Yeah, and like the 0 degree weather, -20 degrees.
Yeah.
No telling what the wind chill was up there.
Yeah, for real. So, but yeah, that's funny. That's funny. So once you got done doing that fun stuff, I guess you guys really you don't have to deal with any kind of you don't deal with any kind of I don't want to say deal with any kind of poles or anything, but most splice cases for fiber come down and then they're in like a handhole or something, correct? And that way you can pull out all the slack to go in your trailer.
No, we have a bunch of buckets.
Oh, you do? Okay.
A bunch of our stuff, but they all have tails. So
Yeah.
I have a bunch of splicers, and then I run helper rolls that come and do all the bucket work. So my splicers, all they have to do is roll up to a pole, throw the cable in the trailer, and do the work. They cool it up nicely, tape it up to the pole, and then my helpers come back and hang it. We have a system that tracks every process of getting the endpoint from A to Z. Like we have a color-coded system, a app-based system that tells us exactly what needs to be done. So for every job we have ever done, I'm able to speak to the time, the place, every little step that was done. We have it documented.
Well, see, and now that's one thing I find very interesting with what you've done, because what you've done is you've almost been like a process engineer where you'll sit down and you come up with a step-by-step process for this system documented. So not only you know what's going on, but that creates records for everything that has happened that you can go back and reference. That's exceedingly rare, and our field and what you do. What gave you the idea to do that? And at the same time, I've got to imagine your workflow process is probably astronomical. I mean, you probably get work done at least twice as fast as any other splicing company.
Well, we cut down on a lot of lost time from extra trips. We say we're a splicing company, but to put everything in the app, we got to write out the whole thing. So coming from the service delivery side, like a technician, like when you pull up to somebody's house, you walk around the house, you see what the obstacles are, how you're going to do something. So on a broader scope, I was able to recreate that whole process of before we start splicing, we drive out every area. If there's a slack cool missing, a pad missing, we communicate that with the prime that has the job at that point. So our goal is to get every problem area fixed before our splicers get to that point and it's a non-issue. Doesn't always happen that way, but we're able to track it.
Yeah.
So we create a long punch list every time we're issued a job. We create a long punch list and we give it back to the prime for all these issues to fix. So essentially, we're doing their construction coordinator work.
Mm-hmm.
I've created the process of doing 2 meetings a week with the project manager and going over all the punch list items. So I have my managers ask about every punch list item in every OLT that's due that month. So we make sure we hit deadlines. Our primes love it. I mean, it saves
I'm
money
sure.
on construction coordinators. It gives us the records we need to answer their questions 6 months or a year down the road as well, because there's always questions down the road.
To be honest with you, that process has to be one of a kind. I mean, and again, I could be wrong here, but just in my dealings, I've dealt with a lot of companies, a lot of subs, a lot of primes, things like that. Very, very few primes and even fewer subs run any kind of process engineering system. So like, punch lists or data entry on the backside, pre-driving a site to know kind of what the obstacles are. That's exceedingly rare. And I do mean exceedingly rare. With that, you guys must be in pretty high demands. I mean, really, no wonder you stay busy, right?
Oh yeah. So yeah, we stay very busy. It almost like our customers, primes, they have their own processes and they really don't care what we do as long as they get the end product they want, and that's to be able to invoice this job. So they do not care about the means, the methods. And I was like, one day a company is going to be like, you're my primary vendor, you're doing all my work, and it's going to work out.
Yeah.
So, again, I'm not a business guy. I just I just think about processes, how we can improve our product, how we can stand apart from the 1,000 other splicing companies out there. And I was like, this is how we do it. We document and we just do a better job of giving engineers the people who's in charge the stuff.
Well, you know, honestly though, and I know you keep saying you're not a business guy, but the business side of things is something that can be easily fixed. You know, it's like, okay, I'm not the best at XYZ. If what you're not the best at is business, that is easily fixed. What's not easily fixed is work. Can you do the work? How is your work? You know, what quality do you have? Those are not things that can be easily fixed. Either you've got a manpower problem, or you have a process problem, or if there's a problem in your work, you got real problems, because now the thing that makes you money is the thing that is wrong. But if the only, you know, if it's like, well, hey, business isn't my strong suit, it's like, okay, well, that's easily fixed. You know, that means that your work is good, your quality is good, your name is good. You just need a little help on the business side of things. Okay. So that being said, the fact that your work is so stellar and your processing is so stellar, I mean, that to me speaks worlds. I mean, that is the hard part. And like someone like me, so I consult, and the worst thing I can ever have to consult on, and I have had to do it, is someone who their work sucks. And I'm just being, and I'm always honest with them. I'm like, hey, I'm going to do an operational survey. Your work sucks. You know, your guys don't get here on time. They don't close up heads. They don't do this. They don't do that. You know, your customers aren't happy because of it. That's the hardest thing to fix. I mean, it really is. And when it comes to that, I mean, you're knocking it out of the park. And by the way, customers, and I don't mean primes, but I mean actual ISP customers, they want to see that you have a process like what you have. That's going to matter. It's going to come up. And the fact that you have that and you've initiated it long enough ago that they can see the byproduct of that, that is huge. I mean, it's very smart of you. And I don't know if you just did it by accident, or you did it by providence, or you did it because you realized like, hey, this is important, but for whatever reason, you did the thing you needed to do to be able to become the prime for, say, some client, some ISP. So again, though, that goes back to work. You know, you got your work squared away. And so with all that, how do you deal with your training? Because, you know, we know that if you pulled some splicer in from Jimmy John's splicing over here, he may not be the best, or maybe he is good, but he just doesn't know your process. Like, how do you deal with your guys, your boots on ground, and getting them trained up in your ways?
We have hired one guy out of the 18 to 25 splicers we have that has experience. We have trained everybody from scratch. Most of them didn't have any telecom experience whatsoever. And it's about a 6 month to a year long process. But the way we operate our business, we're able to get production out of some of the easier stuff by just teaching them a task and then baby them along and not giving them a crash course. And it helps morale, keeps the stress down on them. And then as they learn more, we throw more at them. They start getting more responsibilities. They start caring about deadlines, and they feel like they're a part of a team that really cares about their future. Like every interview I do, I'm not giving jobs. I'm giving 6-figure careers. You know, so you're not there yet, but we will get you there in a short amount of time, faster than a college degree.
Yep. Yeah, so absolutely.
We train them. We get production out of them. Everybody makes our company money, and everybody loves the system we have.
You know,
and we have a QC process to make sure our new guys, we catch it in the moment when they start creating a bad habit.
For sure.
And stopping those bad habits early creates great splicers, you know, on the back end.
And I bet that's probably why it's easier for you to train up a new person, because it probably takes you longer to get rid of the bad habits of a splicer than it does to just train somebody fresh new, right?
Right. Well, a splicer that's been doing it for 5 years knows their stuff. I would say there's some really great splicers out there, everybody's stuck in their own ways. A lot of them is really good at hiding things that, our QC process won't pick up. Just their work is great, but it doesn't look the same as what everybody else does on my team. So when somebody opens an enclosure, I want them to be like, this is a top 0.5 enclosure. I don't know which of their guys did it because they all look the same, but this is our brand and this is what it looks like.
So you're creating the Ford, almost like an assembly line, right? I mean, and I know it's
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like, it's like, hey, I want it's what did Henry Ford original say? Like, you can have any color you want as long as it's black. It's
right.
It's like, this is all going to look the same. This is going to be almost like our calling card. Everyone learns the same. Everyone does the same. And that way, not only does that help the process, but let's be real. Anytime somebody kicks open one of your guys' enclosure, I get you guys don't kick them open anymore, but, used to kick open enclosures.
Yeah.
But, anytime somebody kicks open one of your guys' enclosure, it's very obvious. This was a tie point. I know what I'm getting out of it, right?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And if somebody calls me with the coordinates, the location, the address, I'll be able to find that location and answer any question they have about that location within like 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, sometimes the system, it buffers. I'm in a bad cell phone area, but like I'm able, literally, the systems we put in place, we're able to answer everything about that location, no matter how long that enclosure has been there.
One thing, and I don't know if you saw, you probably not, but I had an interview with Paul Connolly. I think it was like a week ago. And one thing we were talking about is kind of our industry as a whole and the quality of work coming out of people in our industry now. Because 20, 30 years ago, the people that worked in our field realized that this is important work. This is world-changing work. And it is. What we do, these networks are important. They are world-changing. And everyone had pride in that, to the point that old splicers, they would actually initial the enclosures after they got done with them, or they'd put little notes inside of them. There was real pride in what you did. Nowadays, because of what we call the race to the bottom, where everyone's just trying to get cheaper, that you don't have that same pride. There's not that same quality, but you're bringing that back. I mean, clearly with what you're saying, your guys take pride in what they do. They do it the right way. They do it as a production. They do it the same way. And then there's pride in that work. And not only that, but they know if they mess up, it's kind of like old school, how, they used to initial it. So when you opened it, you knew whose enclosure, who had done this work. Well, your guys, you've got all the records. They know at any time somebody can pop that up and say, hey, so-and-so did this. This is their work. Was it good? Was it not good? What was it? And that instills what I think is so important in that. Not only does that instill pride in their personal work or your work as a company, but that kind of thing spreads. It spreads throughout all the companies. It spreads throughout all the ISPs. And getting that kind of idea out there, that mentality out there, is exceedingly important for all of us. So me to you, from all of us, thank you for doing that, and not just, being, well, we go as fast as we can, we kick it open and we finish it and we don't care what it looks like afterwards. What you're doing, whether you realize it or not, is actually exceedingly important. And I guarantee you there's lots of people in our industry who are very thankful to you for doing that. Again, there will come an ISP that sees this and sees you and says, hey, that's who I want maintaining all my networks. That's who I want doing everything. So yeah, you're on the right path, good sir. That's for sure.
I'm a man of faith, and I'm like,
that's right.
God says, go out there, do the 100% best you can, and life will work out. And like, that's what I live by. I don't really have a 5-year plan. I'm like, I just want to do the best I can, create the best processes I can, create the best life for my employees I can, and create the best product I can. And I'm like, the money situation, the business situation, all that will work itself out.
Yeah.
Like the right people will find me at some point
Yep.
and work out. Like all that stuff I can't control, that's in God's hands. The
That's
stuff
right.
I can control is what I concentrate on a daily basis.
That's right. It's fun. It's funny you said that too, because I'm a man of faith as well. And every Sunday we have Bible study at my house with my children. And I sat down with my son after Bible study this week, and I read him the part about basically anytime you work, anything you do it as if you're doing it for the Lord, right? You do it as if like he's your customer and you're working for him. And I told my son, because it's true, it's not just about doing that for someone else. It's because when you work like that, God can easily give you all the opportunities in the world. You're doing the absolute best you can. You're doing it like you're doing it for him. And things do work out in the end when you do it like that. So the fact that that's your mindset, I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, if you work like that, if you focus on what you can control, don't worry about what you can't. God will work that out for you, right? He'll bring people in your life. He'll make situations happen. He'll do things like that. He'll take care of that. It's kind of like there's another, and again, I don't mean to get too, biblical on this podcast, but there is a part in the Bible, where it talks about basically you set your heart on what you want. God will carry your steps. God will point your steps. You just put your heart where you want. And you put your heart where you wanted it. And one morning, waking up at 7:15 saying, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. And went out and
let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. And went wholeheartedly towards it. And then God said, okay, I got your steps. Like, I'll take care of you. And I think that's pretty amazing. I really do. I think it's amazing you've gone from there. And now we're 5 years later, and look where you're at now, Yeah,
I mean, I feel like my life is completely full, but I'm not done yet. Like, I want to do more. I don't know what that more looks like, but I know I can do more.
Yep.
Like, I have manager in place. I have systems in place for where we're at and the size of our company. Like, I really have a lot of free time I'm able to spend with my wife. My wife goes everywhere with me. We travel for work. We're together 24/7. She's by far my best friend, my biggest supporter. She's actually majority owner, and she's actually the brain. She does all the accounting. She's the contract that's been our biggest contract is she was the one who actually secured it. So she's like behind the scenes. She actually knows the color code of fiber. But as far as the business side of it, she's like, I'm good. And just by being around me 24/7, she like knows way more about fiber than she ever has. But she's great, man. She's I couldn't do it without her and her support. Figuring out the insurance, that's like a foreign language to me.
Oh yeah.
It's one of our biggest obstacles, just balancing. Like, if you have too many subs, like my insurance company has like threatened to cancel us because our payroll doesn't match what our sub and their exposure is too much. So it's like, but I can grow faster with subs, but now we have to have more employees to balance it out. So all the subs we actually have, we trained as well. So everybody in our tree has been trained the top point fiber way. So
with that, do you have any personal concerns? Now, I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't. That would be my point, but I'd love to know what you think. Do you have any personal concerns of those subs, let's say, trying to usurp you? Now, that said, I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't. I think that's not the right way to think, but I would like to know your thoughts. Maybe you see it as it's some way different than what I see it.
No, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
So I'm not a company that will sub out work. I'll go get a job in Arkansas and I'll be like, hey, subgroup, you go take care of that. So I've had subs that has had their own contracts with Browns, they've been the next in line, and they get all the work. That also creates a lot of paperwork and a lot of other stuff they don't want to do. So the subs I have, like, we actually offer value to them where they can concentrate on doing what they, doing what makes them money. you know, and forgetting about the rest. Like what we offer the subs gives them time back with their families that we do the stuff they're just not good at. You know, this is a weird field, man. Like it's a physical job, but as far as splicing goes, it can get very technical and tedious and doing that, you know. So, and like you're either really good with a computer, really good, you know, with the tedious stuff, the engineering side, or you're really good at, you know, turning a screwdriver. It's a rare person that wants to do both, and that's what a slicer is.
Yeah.
So we take a lot of that computer stuff and that support stuff away from them and allow them to grow. We give them more people than they'd probably ever be able to handle on their own, and basically organize all their workflow for them, and all they have to do is splice and make sure we hit deadlines.
And I'll tell you, that's kind of the reason, like, I would never be worried if I were you, is because you own, and I know technically, you know, let's say you're not a prime right now or whatever, but you operate as a prime should operate, truly should. Mm-hmm. You actually operate as a contract managing prime should operate. And I don't know if you mean to or not, but what you're doing is you're treating the subs right, and you're saying, listen, the value with me is that all that stuff you don't want to do, we're going to take care of that for you. We're going to take care of all this stuff you don't want to deal with, you don't want to do. You can focus on the work that you're good at, that you do want to do. That frees up your time, that frees up your ability to do other things, whatnot. And then, of course, you as a company, you're going to get a cut out of it because that's what's appropriate. But that's the way a prime sub relationship should work. Or and when I say prime, I mean directly like ISP, you know, prime. Yeah. And that's the way it's supposed to work as a contract administrator. And you're already doing that. You know, you're not doing the old switcheroo of, you know, oh, come, you know, let's get as many guys working here as we can, you know, under us. And then you're milking them for everything you can, and you're putting all your crap off on them. And you're not doing that, you know?
Right.
And so, to be honest with you, I can't imagine any sub, you know, being like, well, you know what, they're doing it wrong, they're doing it this, or doing it that, I'm going to run in under them and try and pull the wool. It's more like, no, I absolutely love working for these guys, and it's awesome.
Absolutely. And that's the feedback I got. It hasn't worked out with every sub company. Every sub company hasn't held up their end of the bargain or lived up to our standards. And we lead through them pretty quickly when we do bring on subs. Our next year goal is to triple the size of our workforce with all in-house employees. I have one subgroup that has all the capabilities, and they could do it on their own, but he's hitching his cart to my horse, and he can grow as big as he wants. But as far as moving forward, it's all going to be in-house. But to answer your original question, I'm not really worried. I know we set the bar high. I don't feel like it's hard what I do. However, nobody else does it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, the bar is high.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like the process coming up with it is hard at first, but once that process is implemented, everybody's trained on that process. I mean, I'm like, this is a stress-free life as far as all that other stuff. Like as far as deadlines and handling construction woes and stuff like that, that's outside of our control. That's where the stress comes in, because in the 4 years we've done this, we haven't missed a deadline due to lack of splicing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If a deadline was missed, it's because it's the day of the deadline and they're still pulling cable, you know? So, and that's one thing I've always preached is we're not going to take on a project if we can't hit the deadline. I'm going to have the resources, bring resources in, and we're going to hold up our end of the bargain. If you miss your deadline, that's because you're not holding up your end of the bargain. But, I mean, we have a lot of guys. Our guys are quick. I mean, I have it set up as an assembly line, so they're not wasting a lot of time hanging and doing all the other stuff that just adds time throughout the day. We've had aggressive deadlines that would have seemed impossible that we've done in a day, 2 days, like over 100 splice locations. So it's been a fun ride.
It sounds like it. I keep going back to the process thing because, to be honest with you, that is such a big deal. And, I know you said like it's not hard, anyone could do it, but man, I don't think they could. I think if it could have been done, it would have been done. I think that you're selling yourself too short there. I really do. I think the fact that you had the mental acuity and foresight to foresee the necessity of such a thing goes beyond clearly what anyone else thought of. And then to take it the Henry Ford route and say, listen, not only are we going to set up a process, we're going to set up a strict process. This it goes here, 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 here. I expect everything to look the same. I expect everything to go the same. And that way I know exactly how long it's going to take you to do this process. More than 5% one way or the other, I know something's wrong there and I can address it. When you do that, when you did that, it is a big deal. It really is. And I don't think anyone to try to replicate that I think they would find out really fast just how hard that is to replicate meaningfully, especially. And I think for you, it was great that you started out that way, because I could not see MasTec or anyone else like that going back now that they have this giant corporation, and say, oh, now let's implement this. Okay, well, now we've got, 10,000 guys in 30 areas we got to try and train up like this. That's nearly impossible. Versus you right off rip, you did it that way. So, yeah, I really think that's a big deal, man. And I think it's gonna stand the test of time. And I think that it's something that is going to be a huge selling point for your company and, for the growth of you guys. Don't sell yourself short on that, man. It's a big deal.
It's definitely something I know that makes our company stand apart than every other splicing company in there. Like, I realize that, and but at the end of the day, like, it wasn't hard for me to implement. So again, back when first 2 years in business, everything was going smoothly, I was telling everybody how, like, you should start their own business. Same thing with this process. Like, why don't y'all just do this? This is easy.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So it's great, man. And like that, having these processes, these systems in place, and being able to break down complex problems or situations, that is our company's superpower. And I know the more our brand gets out, the more in demand we are.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have zero doubt of that. I personally know people I could call and be like, yo, watch this episode. And they'd be like, I need that man's number right now. Like, I mean, seriously, it's a big deal, man. It really is. And,
feel free to send them.
Yeah. Well, I will. But, because you figure so we're talking total 4 years going on 5, right? Okay. Standard business is first 2 years, first 24 months, you're going to just totally lose money. It's going to be bunk. You're going to need to pull in seed money and everything else. Minimum first 2 years. Many times it's actually 4 to 5 years, especially if you have any growth plans at all. So look at it like that. That didn't happen with you.
No, not at all.
Yeah. You basically carried your ship the whole way, day one, plus growth, going out and doing it your way. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't have those growing pains, which I bet pisses a lot of people off when you tell them, go start a company. They're probably like, that son of a, like, because to you, it's like, oh no, but I'm telling you, it had a lot to do with how you do your processing. I really feel like had you not had that, had that not been your game plan, had you not had the worldview you have, I don't think you'd be sitting here. I don't think you'd be where you are now. I think it's all that stuff.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it took me 2 years to realize I just didn't want to be an owner-operator.
Yeah.
2 years into it, life was a lot easier back then when it was just me and the trailer splicing, traveling all over the USA and going where I wanted to work. But then one day just clicked and I was like, why don't I just see how big I can grow this and really apply my talent and come up with a system that allows allows us to grow unlike any other splicing company.
Absolutely.
And so 2 years into it, we were profitable the first year, we're profitable the second year, made more money than I've ever made in my life. And then the third year, our revenue almost tripled, and then our fourth year it almost quadrupled. And then this year we're going to break that again.
Dude, that is when it comes to business, any business, I don't care what you're in, manufacturing, design, whatever, and whatever it is, construction, to have that year over year and not have done any kind of seed or any kind of, first round, second round, anything like that, to just have it all natural, 100% natty growth like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of ridiculous. And it's not like we're talking $1 to $2. We're talking real money to real money, clearly, because you've been able to grow the company, truly grow the company. I mean, so it's not like some pittance amount like, oh, yesterday I sold 1 lemonade and today I sold 2, so I've doubled my money. It's like, no. Like, we've actually truly expanded this company. And, I've got to ask you, because I know personally, I know from experience, there comes a point where a business gets to the size where it takes breaking apart. And what I mean by that is you've got to division it out, or else it gets too much for one man or one woman to hold mentally all the moving parts. How did you achieve that, or how are you not there yet? Are you how are you going to achieve that, or have you even thought about that yet?
I think I'm building our corporation the same way as I built our systems. Like, every time I feel like I'm putting in too many hours, I hire somebody to free up time and give them a specific job function to free up my time to concentrate on the relationships, coming up with standard operating procedures, refine the process, look at the process, refine it again, and come up with something that just flows naturally. And once you put processes in place and make that your Bible, people like that structure. If people didn't like structure, they wouldn't be employees, they'd be business owners.
Yep.
So I provide structure, communication, security for all my guys, and it really puts them in a position to thrive.
Yeah, and that's awesome. So really, you put the pieces where they need to be, in the way that they need to do it, and then for yourself, because let's be clear, as a business owner, you have to take care of yourself. You do. Like that. If you're not taking care of yourself and your family, the business is going to suffer. So you're looking at it, which, by the way, is the right way. It's wise that once you feel yourself getting to a certain point of, let's not call it frustration, let's just call it load. Once you feel yourself getting a certain point of load, then you say, hey, you know what? Let me take this part right here. Let me hand that off to somebody else and let them kind of run with it, and they know what to do. That's really wise, by the way. That is the right way to do it. It keeps you from getting overloaded. And I think that's one thing. And I don't know if it's a happy accident, providence, or what, but it kind of seems like you did the thing that you needed to do that most owners don't realize they need to do. Most owners, especially new business owners, especially, it's one of the things that we always end up having to talk to people about is they think that without them running everything, micromanaging everything, the business will fail. And it's like, well, no. If you set up the correct processes, if you set up the rules of the game, and then you put the people and the pieces in the game with the rules that you have set up, it will run, it will function perfectly, without micromanaging it. What about you specifically made that different for you? Because seriously, a solid 99% of people have the other mindset of, I must micromanage everything, I must know everything, I must do everything, and then they get burnt out, especially within the first 2 years. So what was it? Was it your faith? Was it your experience that gave you and taught you not to do that?
I think I realized just being frustrated in my past of being in a position with a telephone company that's not seeing growth year over year. Every time somebody leaves the company, they shut down that position because their customer base is losing. And I never wanted to create positions for people. Like when I started, like I said, it took me 2 years to hire my first employee.
Mm-hmm.
But I made a promise to myself when I hired my first employee, that person, I'm going to help. So I'm going to help whatever their ambition is. I'm going to help them achieve that. I also say you can't push a wet rope. So if somebody's not ambitious, they may just want to operate a bucket truck and, put in their 8 hours and go home. I realize that there's a place for you. But I've had some really ambitious people on my team, and I was like, I'm going to lose you if I don't put you in a position that makes your talents more applicable of what you see your life being like. So I really started making positions based on my people's talents. And after I did that the first time, and then the second time, I was like, this is helping my organization grow, freeing me up to, take a breather. Because we've grown really fast. And, I've had to put in a lot of work to get it there. I not only had to do the work to get it there, I had to learn how to get it there to begin with. I didn't come in with a fountain of knowledge. So it'd probably been easier if I knew you back then, and I could have been like, Mark, what do I do here? And you could have just told me. So mine was sifting through a lot of information, a lot of bugs, stuff like that. So and I've had people like, when we were smaller, they would come and be like, act like they weren't happy, and I'm like, I'm paying you over the industry average. I'm giving you freedom. I'm flexible with the schedule. Like, what more do you want? And they're like, pay me more. I was like, give me more. And they wouldn't. And eventually they left. This is something Joel Osteen says. Sometimes you got to let the skinny goat go. Like, it's a toxic employee, but he's also the easy button because he's good at what he does. Mm-hmm. However, he brings the morale down. And he's like, you're not going to offer me more? Once he put in his notice, he wanted me to offer him more. And I was like, no, I think for your growth, you need more experience because we trained him. He did aerial lineman. So he wasn't new to the field, but he was new to splicing, and we trained him up from the bottom and got him to a really good place. He's actually thriving, loving life. He's from Alaska, and it was the right move for him. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, you should go. So it's knowing when to let them go too. So you just gotta read your people and help them make the best decisions for them.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to force you to, like, we offer a team. Like, if you don't want to be part of the team, like find yourself a better situation. I don't want you being unhappy every day.
Yeah.
Like, if it's something we can accommodate, I will accommodate, but I'm not changing the way our company philosophies, our values, or treating you any different just because you feel like you need to be treated differently.
Absolutely. Well, and to be honest with you though, and I know me and you've talked about this, but offline, but the moment you're doing it for money, just money, like, okay, well, pay me more money. And it's like, money is not or should not be an ambition. The ambition should be in growth, whether personal or business or whatever, not just money. To me, I've never been comfortable, like, because, I've had situations where, and I was always the kind of person, I paid my people more than the rest of the industry simply because I wanted only the best. That's just how I am. I'll pay you the best. I want the best. But I would never, if somebody came up and said, I just want more money, and I'd be like, okay, but there's more there, because if what you're telling me is you just want more money, well, then why? You're already getting paid good, which I know you pay your guys good. So clearly this guy was getting paid good. So it's like, well, yeah, but there's something else going on here. Money isn't the goal. If money is your goal, then I have concerns about where your ambition lies. You know what I mean? And I know in the 80s it was greed is good. Okay, well, that's cool if you're a coked out Wall Street guy. But, for the rest of us, that's not really what our ambition should be. So, but I do find that funny that, and rightly so, that you were like, hey, no, this clearly isn't the right place for you. I want you to thrive. You handled it perfectly. And now you say the guy's out doing his thing and he's thriving. So, it clearly he didn't need more money. He needed he needed something else. He needed some way to grow or some place to put his ambitions other than just, well, pay me $10 extra an hour and I'll be happy. It's like, yeah, but you won't, will you? So
I think his biggest thing, we were working in rural South Carolina, and he was a city guy. He was a out west guy. He was a cooler climate guy. And I think that was really his big issue and what was really making him upset. He got out west. I don't know if he's making more. That's him. But just talking to him, he seems like a happier person, having a better outside work life from the area he was working in, because we were in like super rural South Carolina at that time, bless his heart.
Yeah. Well, listen, Scott, I truly appreciate you coming on. I love talking to you. I'm sorry we ran out of time. I would love to have you back on again. For anyone that wants to contact you, though, can you just shout out your website, your email, phone number, anything like that you want to shout out real quick?
Yeah, our website is TiePoint Fiber, TIEPOINT fiber.com. My number is 678-756-5855. Or you can reach me by email, scott@tiepointfiber.com.
All right. Hey, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. By the way, all contact for TiePoint will be down in the description. Go check them out. They're an awesome company, and definitely reach out. You take care.
Alexander Graham Bell has passed away, but his successors shall carry forward to still greater triumphs the work that he began, and as long as man exists, the art which Bell created shall endure.